Ballad of the Old Man. He lived in a world in which there were gods, monsters and angels. His brokenness belonged the gods. His hate belonged the monsters. His love belonged the angels. Whensoever he had closed his eyes, he saw an angel of lovely form with black curly hair. Whensoever the eyes slowly closing, he entered a land that was terrible. The monster revealed himself. Whensoever he had opened his eyes, he lied to himself, be able to be a god. Reality. What is the reality? Actuality. What is the actuality? Dream. What is the dream? After that, what will come after that? Ballad of the Old Man. The gods demanded a suicide from him. The monsters demanded the murder from him. The angels would have given him the life. The gods touted for him. The monsters hounded him. The angels waited for him. The gods deceived him. Was not a suicide the murder of yourself, the perfection of the murder per se? To decide self about moment and manner, could there be a more divine doing? The monsters lied to him. Was not the murder to watch death doing his work, to support him thereby, to make yourself to the master of life and death, the fulfillment of life, of being per se? The angels demanded him. Life should be something, for that it was demanded to do something, for that it was demanded to strain yourself, and only the life per se should be the reward in all. Suicide, for him, one had to become a god. Murder, for him, one had to become a monster. Life, for her, one had to become an angel. Ballad of the Old Man. The brokenness led him into suicide. The hate led him into murder. The love would have led him to life. The brokenness was his fulfillment. The hate was his spectre. The love was his desire. The brokenness was of lowly form, not to commit yourself to something you had to, not take a stance, constantly wavering, staggering, indecisive, so he drifted on towards the suicide. The hate was of a rousing form, him it gave in abundance, nothing he demanded, just only an act, without thinking, only to devote yourself to the own desires, so he drifted on towards the murder. The love was of inconspicuous form, but she demanded a lot, to tie yourself down, take a stance, be determined, respect the own feelings, open up to others, their feelings, so it drifted away from life. Suicide. He demanded the brokenness, only in the brokenness suicide was possible. Murder. He demanded the hate, only in the hate murder was possible. Life. She demanded the love, only in the love life was possible. Gods, suicide, brokenness. Monsters, murder, hate. Angels, life, love. Ballad of the Old Man. The not occurring act was his life. The destructive act drove him into the murder. To the creative act only remained suicide. The not occurring act dominated his life. The destructive act was a part of himself. The creative act was foreign to his life. The not occurring act, how simple he was, always 1,000 plans in the head, what all would be possible, could be, everywhere you could be, everything could be done so far away from life. The destructive act, still easier was he. To his, it was not even demanded a plan, only destruction was necessary, so natural was the murder. The creative act, how heavy he was. To bear the insufferableness in hope and fear to create something, to reveal yourself, others let judge on yourself, so natural was the suicide. Life, to accept her, one would have had to overcome the not occurring act. Murder, to refuse him, one would have had to overcome the destructive act. Suicide, to refuse him, one would have had to overcome the creative act. An emptiness spreads out. Ballad of the Old Man. His inability was the life. His fate was almost the murder. His salvation was the suicide. His inability he could not overcome. His fate he did not want to accept. His salvation he could not find. His inability led him to believe in the luck. Nothing to finish meant not to have to face up to something, not to be able to fail meant to lose the life. His fate led him to believe in the safety, to have responsibility for nothing, not to be aware of guiltiness, to suppress everything meant to surrender yourself to the murder. His salvation led him to believe in the nothingness. In the nothingness he could lose himself, dissolve therein, move on from everything. To be undefiled meant to surrender yourself to the suicide. Life, to accept her, would have needed ability. Murder, to refuse him, would have needed strength. Suicide, to refuse him, would have needed calmness. Not occurring act, life, inability. Destructive act, murder, fate. Creative act, suicide, salvation. Thank you for listening.